Well, good morning. Let me get the daily reflection up here. What button am I doing? Here we go. Daily reflection. A spiritual axiom, October 9th. Today is, Thursday, October 9th, 2025. It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. There is something wrong with us. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 90. I never truly understood the 10th step spiritual axiom until I had the following experience. I was sitting in my bedroom reading into the wee hours when suddenly I heard my dogs barking in the backyard. My neighbors frown on this kind of disturbance, so, with mixed feelings of anger and shame, as well as fear of my neighbors' disapproval, I immediately called in my dogs. Several weeks later, the exact situation repeated itself. But this time, because I was feeling more at peace with myself, I was able to accept the situations. Dogs will bark, and I calmly called in the dogs. Both incidents taught me that when a person experiences nearly identical events and reacts two different ways, then it is not the event which is of prime importance, but the person's spiritual condition. Feelings come from inside, not from the outward circumstances. When my spiritual condition is positive, I react positively. Well, that's a good lesson. But but there's a suspense now. We don't know why the dogs were barking in the middle of the night. It sounds like there's something going on out there. I guess we'll just have to remain in that state of suspense. Um, let's see, what have I been watching on YouTube recently? Share this tab instead. I watched some of this Is American Evangelism the Way Forward? When I talked to Chad the other day, he said this was pretty good. And I had just watched the very beginning of it, and it did get better. Sam is a calming influence, so he could say about anything and probably wouldn't rile me too much. So I watched some of that. I didn't watch once, and they started letting more people in. My time period kind of came to an end, so maybe I'll catch up with that some more later. I don't know. I watched this Rational Animations, The Alien Message. I'm not sure what to make of it, but I did watch it. It was interesting. I watched a little bit of Sartori Studios' reading of Tense Before Temples, Chapter 4, just a little bit. KK Conjecture, I didn't watch very much of that. I started The Deep Sea Diver, but I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a little bit of What to Do When People Won't Get on Board, and then I went and looked up the song Get On Board. The farmer guy that I watch frequently, he's talking about discovering peace, and that was interesting. I watched some of this. This was like a live stream or something. Wasn't really a live. Well, it was maybe a presentation, premiere of a live stream. I'm not sure. I listened to some of this yesterday. Why everything got suddenly worse. It was interesting. I thought this was interesting, although I didn't watch the Jordan Peterson clip. Barry Weiss made editor-in-chief at CBS. That's an interesting development. And I was on with Chad. This was it yesterday? No, might have been. I don't remember now. Might have been yesterday I was on with Chad. I don't think so. I think it was a couple days ago. I don't think I was on at all yesterday morning. The Christianity Today with Russell Moore and Paul Kingsnorth. I listened to most of that, I think, or quite a bit of it, and it was interesting. I think that's about it for yesterday. I'm not listening to as much stuff because my listening during work time has been curtailed quite a bit. My cell phone doesn't work very well in the cubicle farm. Um, Recently, there has been kind of a repositioning or invigoration of in the TLC area, probably led by Mark Parker, um, in animating the kingdom of God through political means. Mark is really good at finding the ways that our politics are not very humane and um, the lapses in our culture that make it something quite a bit less than the kingdom of God, which doesn't seem surprising to me, but sometimes seems surprising that he's surprised. I don't know, maybe not. Um, and then there was this other fellow on from Great Britain who kind of was hitting that pretty hard, that we should be more interested in animating principles of the kingdom of God through our corporate action in the form of government. I don't I think that's a dead end. I really do. The reason the kingdom of God works is because it's a monarchy and an enforceable monarchy. That's a much different thing than what we're dealing with, where it's a herding of herding of cats while giving the cats as much freedom as well, not as much as possible, but at least as much as um, acceptable, sometimes too much. So there isn't any kingness involved in our situation, especially not any omnipotent and omniscient kingness involved in our situation. Asking my neighbors who don't subscribe, may or may not subscribe, to my vision for the future to um, overthrow their vision for the future with my vision for the future is different in a monarchy where I would be king, of course. And now we're in a position of like negotiation. And so it's going to come out to be a disappointment to both he and I as far as how much we are hewing to our respective visions for the future. The man from the UK who was hitting this pretty hard, um, he brought up the cutting off of funds for PEPFAR, which was something that started by George W. Bush to help manage the HIV crisis. And I like PEPFAR. I think it was a very good thing to do. But this man in Great Britain is upset that Trump came along and turned it off. I don't know what representations were made as far as how long it would last. If there were representations made that it had some time limit, or representations that it had no time limit, which I think would be very foolish, then I think it's best to try to stick with those representations and do what you represented as much as possible. But I got the impression that he really wanted to use this as some form of condemnation of the current situation because they decided to do something different or reevaluate priorities. And that turns into a punishment for doing something right for a while. Why would anyone start if then you're going to be held accountable for continuing indefinitely? So I think it was kind of a counterproductive move on his part. But it also kind of made the point that it does show a reevaluation of priorities, and maybe that reevaluation ended up in an inappropriate outcome. That's possible. Um, I didn't really like although I participated in the scrum that in the comments section, I didn't really like it. That was into the um, Mark's conversation. It had it had the politics flavor to it, which is kind of unresolvable and always unresolved. And our current version of that is people standing back to back facing in opposite directions. So it's not even clear what common goal there is. If the prosperity of my country is allowed, or if it's some other globalist assumption, or exactly what common goals are being sought. So, in that way, I think it's kind of pointless after a while. But like I say, then I went and watched some of at least the beginning part, and they were very well behaved and had some interesting things to say. So some of it is just the um, clash of trollish um, affectation. Well, what time is it? Oh, 5:47. I have about 10 more minutes. Hi, Chad. Good morning. I hope things are well with you. Um, I've been really busy with work. I'm probably busier than I should be. I get going here about 7, get to work at 7:45, and I've been working roughly 9 hours. I'm a little bit behind. I took some time off and that I have to make up, and slowly I'm getting that accomplished. So I'm working too much, and then I get home, and of course it's going to get worse as the daylight gets shorter. And I'll be driving in the dark in the morning and the evening. So, but the work is interesting, and it's absorbing. I put a lot of effort into thinking, and so that part of it is good. And I think it's a good project, so I think it's worthwhile. Um, and of course, they pay me, so that's good. Um, but I feel like I have a lot of other things could be working on, and so I don't know. I think I'm doing the thing I should be doing. So I'm not doubting, but I'm kind of mystified as to why this is the thing I should be doing. Maybe it is just to keep me out of trouble, and that would be fine. I work with another gentleman who's older than I am. He's 70, and I work with a couple of younger guys. Well, most of the rest of the people there are younger guys, some of them in their 30s and some younger than that. And it's been a fine place to work, so I don't have any complaints. I wish I had a window. It would be nice to be able to see out a little bit, but I'm not constrained from walking up the stairs and going and looking outside. Um, so I don't really have anything else to say about any of that. Still lots of boxes here. I'm slowly sorting through some of it, resurrecting things as I need them. I don't know of any other subject. I saw PBK had dropped a link for the estuary, online estuary, and I thought, oh, I'll go look. And there were still a couple of slots. And I thought, I wonder what I would talk about. Well, I'm not going to take a couple of hours off, which maybe I should, but I'm not going to participate. I'm not even sure what I would talk about. You have to have something that's on your mind, and my things on my mind are kind of constrained on myopic. Constrained on my local stuff. Thought I heard something beep. I don't see anything going on. So what would I be interested in talking about? I've been doing some puzzles recently. I don't have my puzzle book. When I was visiting my mother's household in early August, I found a puzzle book there, and I've been working my way through. They are they call them cryptograms. They're where they use a different alphabet. They use the same letters, but they use a different. Um, they use a substitution. So, like if it says an A, it might be X or whatever. And then it's like phrases, and they give you a hint about what it is. And then you do things like look at the words and the arrangement of these alternative letterings into words, and then you count the number of letters, and you try to figure out, either by um, the amount of occurrence of particular letters, if it's a T or an R, and you start filling in and try to figure out what the phrase is. And that's been very interesting. They have a time estimate of how long it's supposed to take, and I found the time estimates to be amazingly wrong. As I have run into some that have stumped me for days, and others that I look at, and it's like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what that is. And I'm not sure what that is. It's like in a different part of my brain because it kind of comes up out of the depths on its own. I'll be looking at this and I think, here's these, like I write down the 2-letter words and the 3-letter words and the 1-letter words. I only know of 1-letter words. It's either a or a I, and that gives you a way in. You can figure out, okay, now I know all the I's or all the A's or whatever. And if you can find THE, then there's a whole bunch of words that have THE at the beginning. And so there's these bits of words that you start to put together and recognize, and eventually, if enough things fit, then it kind of all kind of comes together. And sometimes I'll see it and I'll immediately recognize it. And other times I've been erasing, writing and erasing and writing and erasing, trying to, filling it in a certain way. And then you get to a certain spot. And then eventually there's like the pattern of the hard spots. It's like there's three words where they use these same letters in different ways. And so then you have to think of words. One time not too long ago, I wrote up a little spreadsheet on my computer with there were three words with the same letters. There were like five letters used in different ways in these words. And I set it up so that they were all using the spreadsheet. So if I changed my little alphabet down in the corner, it would put those letters in the right places. So like the original was like an N at the beginning of each word. And I had the thing down below that spot for the beginning, or there might have been other uses of N also. Everything that was an N in the beginning was, or in the original, was then this one letter. And then I would put, O in there, and all the N's would change to O, that kind of thing. So I had it so that I could just type and it would change them all. And I spent about 20 minutes trying different things and finally figured out a combination of letters. And I went in and put that in, and then the rest of it all just fell into place. And I'm kind of stuck on one. I've had some easy ones, and now I'm stuck on one. And it has a two-letter word and two three-letter words. And the first word, the two-letter word, the second letter is the same as the second and third letter on the three-letter word. So this would be like we and see, if they were all the E's. But then this other word has that second letter and a space and a second letter for a three-letter word. So then like I, E-Y-E. So we have we, see, and then later on the word I. Well, that was a combination I tried, but then I got other places in there and I got stuck and that didn't work. So I've been spending a lot of my time the last couple days thinking of two-letter words and three-letter words. So I'm in a land of puzzles right now because a lot of my work involves kind of puzzles also. And I'm reading a lot of at bit. Well, no, the bit would have to have two T's. So A-T and then B-T-T, two T's. And then the third word has the beginning and the end has T. So it'd be like tot, T-O-T. I couldn't think of a word that had two T's. So I didn't think T was going to work. Yeah, I can't think of a three-letter word that has two T's. So a lot of it is the recall of words. And one of the methods I do is kind of in my mind is I'll think of like, okay, words that have the same letter, three-letter word that has the same letter at the beginning and the end, like did, dad. So the D will work for that, did and dad, dud. I, like I won't work for that. I blank I, what goes in the word I blank I? I don't think so. So I'll just go through the alphabet. A blank A. Nah, I don't think of any. B blank B. Well, there's Bob. Bob's a name, but it's also like, Plum Bob, so the Bob is a word. So B would work. C blank C. I don't think so. D blank D. Well, we found some of those. So I just go through all of the alphabet and then it gives me like a list of letters that might work. And I wrote down some. I need to write down all of them. And then I start to, start to get it put together. E was one that did work, but S works. D, I had problems with. You can do dad and add. And is there a two-letter word that ends in D? I couldn't think of a two-letter word that ends in D. AD, BD, CD, DD, ED, FD, GD, HD, ID, JD, KD, LD, MD, ND, OD, PD, QD, Yeah, RDSTSDUDV. Yeah, I couldn't think of any two-letter words that ends in D, so it kinda killed the D. Ed. Yeah, that's a name. I don't think that's a word. That's another thing. It was really interesting. I had a three-letter word, and I thought app, APP, but then I thought, this book is 40 years old. I don't know if app was a word 40 years ago. Well, you see, "Oh, mom" would have to be OM and then MOM. So all of these this one letter fills a whole bunch of slots. Oh, this it's the second letter in the two letters, and it's the second and the third, so it's twice in the three-letter version, and then it's the first and the last in the three-letter version. It's all the same letter. So you got it like, yeah, like we and C and I, EYE. So then you have E in all the right places. So been working on that puzzle. Haven't solved that one yet. Eventually, it'll probably just kind of fall into place. That's how it has happened. I've thought of like, oh, yeah, that works. And then away I go. And then on to the next one. And that's a lot of like what the kind of work I've been doing is also that kind of thing where it's like, oh, I'm not sure if I even know how to do this. And then coming up with some strategy or method or tool or something. And slowly it kind of comes together and on to the next one. So egg. Yes, egg works. Well, then it's G. Then the letter is G. So do you know any two-letter words that end in G? I don't know any two-letter word that ends in G. And gag for the beginning and end one, you can have gag or um, might be other ones. It's interesting the combinations of vowels and consonants in the words, especially small words. You almost always have to have at least one vowel, but sometimes there's some cases where strange things happen. Um, so yeah, and I don't know. Like I said, I was looking at I'm looking at this book, and it's probably 40 years old. And app was one of my possible words, and I don't know if app is actually a word before the current generation. Now where there's apps everywhere, everything's an app. And was app something before that? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it was just a shortened word, but now it's found its own spot. So if this had been yesterday, or if it was in the newspaper, no, it has to be the second letter. Go is the first letter. It has to be OG, and I don't think OG is a two-letter word. Um, application. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I've been in the land of words with my puzzle book, and it is kind of strange. I don't know if it's the way my mind is working now or if it always has, but these words will just kind of appear out of nowhere. It's like, oh, that fits. Um, and I get into questions of spelling. You know, is this how you spell that? Hmm. Anyway, OZ. That's true. OZ. Well, no, that's a place. That's a name. Oz. Yeah. Because then you could have zoo, but then you have to have the beginning and end is Z. So Z blank Z. And I don't know what you'd have there. Uh, I don't know why I like puzzles. I don't. Some puzzles I like, and some puzzles I don't like. Some of them are too hard, and then they just get boring. This book has had the appropriate amount of level of satisfaction to keep me at it, at least for a while. We've been watching a TV show, a couple of TV shows in the evening. Because I'm thinking about, well, what other things do I do with myself when I'm at home? Empty, getting boxes, opening them up to see what's in them, and then putting some stuff away, gathering up all the paper. Um, If and off, yeah, but then FAF, FBF, because I got the F there, beginning and end. This is a hard one. Um, and and we've been watching Slow Horses, which is Apple TV. Slow Horses, which is British spy thing, and it's okay. It's fun. And what other one? There's a British police show that we're watching. I don't remember the name of it. It's kind of a mix. It's kind of a mix with police and kind of comedy, kind of a police comedy thing. But they do solve the puzzle. See, I'm into puzzles all over the place. I like it when you get to the end of the show and they have some resolution. Well, it's after 6 o'clock, so I need to go get shaved and off to work. It's Thursday already. Thursday's an interesting day. Wednesday's always the day that surprises me. When it's Wednesday, it's like, where did the week go? Children of Men. I've seen the movie. I haven't read the book. Is the movie and the book's a similar thing? Um, Yesterday's Thursday and tomorrow's Friday. We'll see if I can book it. Book is far better. Okay, that's usually the case. I don't know why, but they're able to communicate more in a book than they are in a movie. Why is that? Why is that? Maybe it's because it engages more of your brain. Because a movie, you can just kind of sit there and they pour it in, just kind of like open the lid and they dump it in. And with the book, it kind of like there's more gears turning or something. There's more to it. I was reading about how people going to college now, even like English majors, they'll get there and they've never read a long book, never read in their life, something that's 500 pages or whatever. The movie has no spoilers. That's true. The movie has no spoilers. You're saying for the book. Yeah, I would say, yeah, there's usually more stuff in the book, right? So anyway, heard this news report that, or some kind of newsish thing, that people don't read as much as they used to, and I believe that. I'm not reading as much as I used to. Um, well, I won't say that. I'm interacting more than I used to, but it's more interpersonal interaction, which is probably better in some ways to be having conversations, um, but in other ways not as capturing. Books are really capturing to my mind. Read a book and it takes you to a far place and you're almost like you're there. And conversations are you really are there, and so that's not the issue you're talking about. Well, I should go. 6 after 6. I don't really know what I'm doing here these mornings. I'm glad you guys are on. Thanks for jumping in, Ron. Got says my little counter says there's 3 people, and I'm glad you were talking a little bit on the chat because I really wasn't adding anything. I went out to lunch with some of the guys at work. They invited me. I don't know why, but some of the older guys invited me to go out, and so I have been doing that. And I just kind of sit. Sometimes I talk, but yesterday was a Tuesday. I just kind of just sat, listened to them talk about things, and a couple of them have kids and where they send their kids to school, and a few things about work, but mostly, about other stuff. And yeah, some days I'll talk and some days not. Usually I talk too much. I feel like there's something more I should say or do, but you have my best regards. I hope your day goes well. Um, and Chad, I appreciate your asking for prayer for Jordan Peterson. He's done a lot of good for a lot of people, and the the desire to be around him was almost Jesus-like, can I touch the hem of his garment kind of thing. I don't think I had that personally, but I imagined that as he talked about, people after a lecture, people would talk to him for hours, and that he would be available to do that. And so now that he needs a little bit um, of our attention, I hope we can give him a little bit of that. Oh, and also I'll say that I wrote my October $35 check to the Living Stones. So even though Mark Parker sometimes drives me crazy, he has now gotten me in a good habit, and so I am movable. It's not like I'm completely intransigent. I am movable, and maybe we'll try to keep that up at least for the rest of the year. All right, I'm gonna go do Thursday. See you later.